It's all for you. Yeah, yo. There whenever it matters, and even more when you feel like it doesn't. Protect you so you never feel like you wasn't. Know I'm right alongside you. Either that or I'm behind you, but always got you. End of discussion, nothing means more. First one to offer is shoulders for what you reach for. Thought I saw the eyes of the world until I seen yours. And know that I ain't see a better view yet. I'm with whatever, so don't ever you fret. Know that you covered, not a hurdle or a heartbreak. A change what a partake, cause none of them won't ever get comfortable in your walkway. My job is to aware you, fully loaded, prepare you for all of the above that I'm never letting get near you. But still in all, give you every advantage I found. Couldn't find a better fit for them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down. Cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
How you doing, sir?
I don't know how it's working out on your end. Can you got me?
It looks beautiful, man. It looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. You're on point.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Mr. Omowale, am I pronouncing it right, sir?
Omowale.
Omowale.
Yes, sir.
All right, got it. Which means the child has come in Nigeria, right? The Yaro tribe, right?
Yoruba, absolutely.
Yoruba tribe, right? But how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
I'm doing good. How's your family?
My family is good. I appreciate you asking.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I know you're busy. You know, you're on your grind. Even though we're on lockdown, you're still trying to make the best out of the situation. The reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you is because I think when I think of dad as a noun, I think of changing the narrative. Because usually that narrative that's been told to us is that the absent Black father. And that's been told to us for decades. And when the lie becomes a myth, it becomes a truth. And so one of my goals with that as a noun is to flip the script and change that narrative. And one key component of that is when you talk about men of color and gun rights. Because one important thing I think about is what happens is that the media kind of portrays that image of the gangs that has the guns illegally, and that's a lasting impression on a lot of people, but that's not true. You know, I did do a study. I did read a report that over, I think it's like 13 million men of color, women of color that has guns in America legally, and that's facts. And those are your average Joe, your doctors, your nurse, your truck drivers, you know, who live everyday lives, but at the same time wanted to protect yourself. And I felt like what was important to talk to you was about, because you also as a co-founder of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, which you guys do more than just a gun club. You guys are activists. You do a lot in the community. So can you talk about what you guys do to change that narrative?
Right. We believe every organization is defined by practical solutions that they can actually give people. You have a lot of organizations who are more or less rhetorical. You know, they talk a lot of information, but they don't give the people any practical use of programs. So what we're involved in our communities are, we're involved in actual patrols where we go out and we patrol the police department when they come into our communities. And we also have national survival programs that we teach our communities for free. Basically how to survive in the event of an emergency, a national disaster, of anything that could happen. We try to prepare our people because we understand that there's nobody in the Black community that's teaching this kind of education and this kind of knowledge to the Black people, the Black community in general.
And which is a key component. And the beauty of your organization and the teams that you partner up with is that you don't get government dollars. This is all you guys. You guys put your money together and you guys figure out a solution.
Absolutely. We are forbidden in our bylaws to take 1 cent from the government. you know, once the government starts giving you funds and start giving you money, they basically have control of your organization.
Right.
And we don't want that, and we can't have that. So everything that we do is either funded by ourselves or is funded by the people. We're strictly a grassroots organization, and we do not take donations from the government. You're absolutely correct.
And then also the key component, like you said earlier, was education. I think the key component is understanding the history between the Second Amendment and blacks' freedom in the United States, in America. They kind of go hand in hand together. If you go back to the Civil Rights Movement, even before the Civil Rights Movement, that played a key role. Can you talk about that a little bit?
First and foremost, we'll start with we'll go all the way back to slavery. We know that they had every reason to try to keep guns out of the hand of black people because they were afraid that black people would rebel against their slave masters. So that's what brought in what we know now as the slave patrol, which have come to be known as the everyday police departments. Black people earned their own freedom. A lot of people say we were emancipated through Lincoln, but you know we were not released by the Southerners in the South.
Right.
So after the emancipation, over 200,000 black men joined the Union Army, and we fought and we basically liberated ourselves. The Union and the South was in a stalemate until the black men actually joined the movement. And we understand that no people can completely be free unless they have the means to defend themselves. Hence the civil rights movement and what these brothers and sisters did during the 60s. A lot of those were nonviolent protests, but you can guarantee there were people there that were absolutely armed during these movements.
Yeah, because when I think about it too is I think about Rosa Parks, her story. When she was a little girl, she would sneak and see her grandfather outside with a rifle outside of their house, fearing that the Ku Klux Klan were gonna attack them. Especially as when she got older, her and her husband, you know, they believed the Second Amendment. They had guns on the table, fearing that, you know, the KKK was gonna come back. Because at that time, you had massive lynching, you had house bombing, you have all that things going on at that same time. So, you know, they felt like they had to arm themselves to protect themselves in case that happened, and that happened often.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, there's been no freedom movement or no liberation movement that did not include some type of guns or some type of weapons for the people to defend themselves. And we have to understand that America has done everything possible to keep guns out of the hands of black people. Even when you see the media image, it's more of a criminalization.
Right.
But like you gave the stats earlier, there are, I would say 80% of black people own their guns legally and went through the correct process. So we have to get over looking at the American media system and their statistics, and we have to understand that criminals are not the ones that own guns in the black community, but self-righteous, hard-working people. I mean, of course, criminals own guns, but that's every ethnic group, not just black men.
I agree. And then the key thing is, how do you change that narrative? Because again, you're about community outreach, you know, building your community. And sometimes what happens is that people take that as being anti-cop and anti-white. So what do you do to, you know, change that thought process when people think about your organization and organizations like yourself that's trying to do the right thing, but at the same time you have people say, oh, you're anti-cop and you're this, and which is not true. So how do you direct that conversation?
Right. Well, we're not anti-cop. We're not anti-government. We're anti-racist cop. We're anti-racist government. But you have to look at the fact. America is a small country, and every ethnic group has the right to be here in this country. So again, it doesn't behoove us or any other ethnic program to be racist. It's not going to get us anywhere. Our foundation is based on love for black people, and that's what we head our movement with. Love, unity, respect, and humbleness in the black community. So that's how we are when we go out and we educate people on their gun rights, on their civil rights, on the Second Amendment, on human rights.
And because I think that's an important thing that you brought up too, because a lot of people don't know about, especially with the history of the Black Panther movement, is that they weren't anti-white, they weren't anti-cop, they was anti-establishment. You know,
Mhm.
they played a big role with the women's movement as well as the gay and brothers community at that time. Because before, you
Right.
know, it was taboo at that time, but at the same
Mhm.
time, they were supporting them too, as well as it was they had a group called the Pink Panther movement, which was like the white version of the Black Panther. And
Right.
so, you know, if you look back in history, you know, they weren't that. They were all about love for everybody, even though their
Mhm.
main focus was their community. But if another community needed help, they helped them out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me just say that the Panthers and the movement of the 60s with the original Black Panthers was a very unique movement. And you're right, they were not racist towards any ethnic group. They were racist towards oppression in general. They were racist towards fascism in general. So that was a very unique movement. It's kind of hard now in 2020 to go back and reinvent the wheel.
Right.
But right now, we do understand the message that they brought forth, and we try to live on that platform. Absolutely.
So as a father, that dynamic of, you know, how do you educate your kids about, you know, rights and responsibility when it comes to guns? Because I think that's the key
Mhm.
question, dynamic when you talk about the Second Amendment. It's understand, yes, you have the right legally to own a gun if you go through the proper
Right.
channel, but your
Right.
responsibility. And I feel like that
Right.
kind of conversation is kind of diluted. So can you talk about
Right.
that a little bit?
Yeah, one of the main things that we teach with the Huey P. Newton Gun Club is first safety, how to handle the firearms, and the responsibility that goes along with the ownership of that firearm. We make sure to that people understand that when you purchase a firearm, you now have the power of life and death. So just because you go out and get into a small argument, if your life is not in a direct threat, you cannot pull that trigger. So there's responsibility that comes along with the purchase and the ownership of a firearm. A firearm is basically to defend yourself and to defend your family. So just because you go out and get it again into a small, minute argument, that you cannot take a person's life. So we try to drill that into anyone's head when we're out teaching and educating the masses of people.
I hear that, man. So, what do you think is the right age to teach a child about guns? What do you think would be the right age? Because I know parenting, when you teach kids, you know, some kids get information a lot quicker than other kids. But what would be like
Mhm.
the basic right age to tell kids about, you know, about guns and how to use guns?
Right. It's basically up to the child and his understanding and his awareness. Uh, some are some are as early as 5 years old because they have the basic understanding of how the gun functions and how the mechanisms work. As far as the responsibility aspect of it, we would say about 13 to 14 years old before we can actually just put a weapon into a child's hand and we can go out and actually take him out to the gun range. So they can start learning the mechanisms as early as 5 or 6 years old. But for them to actually say own a 22 rifle like some children do, we would say about 14 to 15 years old. But again, it depends on on each child and his ability to understand and comprehend what he's doing with that weapon.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Also, you know, the key component, like I was saying earlier, is that you're not just a gun club. You also do other things in the community. What other things do you do in the community?
Well, again, we have our basic survival programs. I don't know if you've ever heard of a bug out bag.
Yes.
This is the Yeah, okay. This is the bag of resources that, in the event of an emergency, that you're able to live off just what you have in this bag for anywhere from 3 to 90 days. So, you know, most of the black communities never heard of a bug out bag. They don't have a clue of what that is or what it's for. So we have weekly classes. that teach people the importance of preparing yourself. Again, we have other survival aspects which also feature food, clothing, and shelter that we took from the original party. So we go out and we hand out food, we hand out clothing, and we help with shelter as much as we can. We have an Atlanta chapter of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club who have actually went out and purchased houses, and they are under renovation for single mothers and mothers with children, and just homeless people that they can help. So we're pretty active in the community as far as our community programs are concerned.
And pertaining to the pandemic, what are you guys doing in the community to help them, to educate them about the pandemic?
Actually, right now, we're just coming off a lockdown ourselves. So we've been sharing a lot of information through social media as far as what type of equipment that you use. Basically, the N95 mask. This is the mask that stops the virus from coming through. We've been sharing information as far as that concerned, and other information concerning basically gas masks and things of that nature, protection that you could use to keep yourself free from the virus. So not a lot that we've been doing, particularly as far as the coronavirus, mostly just kind of educating from the social media, since we haven't been able to actually get with the people because of social distancing.
Awesome. And then my last question is, what do you say to someone that's novice when it comes to purchasing their first gun? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Go out and, first of all, do your research. Maybe Google a couple things, Google a couple guns, but go out and get a feel. Put the actual weapon in your hand. See how it feels. If you're a novice, of course, you're not going to have a lot of information, but talk to people. Have a discussion. Do you want an 8-round magazine? Do you want a 15-round magazine? A lot of things go into that. Do you want a weapon that's small enough for you to conceal, or do you want a weapon that's capable of having a high-capacity magazine? So there's a lot of variations that go into a novice purchasing their first gun. But the main thing that you have to do is go out and do some research before you just go out and purchase a weapon. So the more research, the better.
That's great advice, sir. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I love the work that you're doing and your organization is doing. You always have time to talk to me if you guys got anything new going on. And I just love that intellectual conversation when we talk about what struggles and the positive things that happens in the Black community. Again, sir, I thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Okay, absolutely, and thank you for having me. So if you decide to have a further discussion, you can reach out to me anytime.
I appreciate that, sir. You have a good day, man. Don't be a stranger.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Okay.